because we may just forget about Donne today. Probably not, but. So why? How many of you are English majors? Almost all of you. Some of you are English minors, though I think everybody raised their hand. Okay? Why did you become an English major? Are you going to English when you graduate? Are you going to become an Englisher? No, you're not. So what are you going to, why are you an English major? Come on, answer. I'm actually interested.
Because I love English.
What do you mean you love English? You like grammar? You like the words? You love to read.
I enjoy literature and I like to write. And I want to teach people how to appreciate literature.
Okay? You love literature. Some of you like to write. And you want to, say that last part again, Christina.
I want to help people understand literature.
You want to help people understand literature. Is that really it? Because you said it differently the first time.
Well, I remember the first time.
You said you want to help them appreciate.
Yes.
What does that really mean? How many of you have read a book, you've gone to somebody and said, oh man, you've got to read this book. This is the greatest thing written. And then they read it and they don't like it.
All the time.
Yeah, all the time.
It's so sad.
So when you're bringing that book to that person, what are you trying to do? Help them find value? Okay, what else?
Help them take something from it that they can apply to their life.
Okay.
I got something great out of this, and you can too. Broaden their horizons.
Broaden their horizon. Okay, now you're getting more into the traditional, the English majors, teachers kind of.
You're sharing something that you love with someone that you appreciate. And so
and what do you want them to do?
You want them to love it.
You want them to love it too. You want to pass on that passion. And so you're crestfallen when they don't love it. Because it makes you think, what a moron this person is. How can you not love this book, okay, let's broaden literature. This film, this play, etc. Should we broaden literature so broadly that it includes this? It's the written word. It's literature. Nonsense. Okay? What did I just, in throwing that away, what did I just imply? There is this, and there is this. There is, what do you want to put in front of literature over here?
Art.
Louder?
Art.
Art, and not art. There is good literature, and there is bad literature. Not all literature is created equally, right? I hope everybody in here agrees with that. Because if you don't, there's something wrong. If you say every kind of literary product is equal in value, then you're not making any distinctions. Distinctions are good. I know in our society, we think making distinctions between things, that's some kind of raw bad. That's an evil, that's a sin. Or making, dare I even use the word, discrimination. What does it mean to be discriminating? It means to tell the difference. It doesn't mean saying this thing over here is rotten, bad, evil, foul. This thing over here is good, great, etc. It's merely saying this is not this. This is not this. That is a discrimination between the two. Pure and simple. This is a hell of a lot better than this for what? Writing on a whiteboard. Because doesn't work. This is a hell of a lot better than this for what?
Google.
Reading emails to class. Taking phone calls, etc. In other words, they each have a different purpose. Well, different kinds of literature have different purposes involved. Some of them are to pass on ideas that an author deems worthy of passing on. Some of them are merely create images in your mind, and that's it. Nothing else, no deeper meaning. Read Juan Carlos Williams' The Red Wheelbarrow. So much depends upon the red wheelbarrow sitting sitting beside the white chickens glistening in the rainwater, or something like that. I usually have it memorized for my 2030 courses, but I've not taught those in so long. Well, how much depends upon a stupid red wheelbarrow glistening in rainwater sitting beside the white chickens? Like the world? Life? Why does he write the poem? It is entirely imagistic. It's just to create an image in your mind that now you're going to have the rest of the day in your mind an image of a red wheelbarrow glistening in rainwater and maybe some white chickens beside it. And you're going to, damn it, Sherman, why did you put that image in my mind? Because it's going to stick. Okay? You went into an English major because of what the guy says at the end of that. Joy. It brings you joy. It brings you pleasure. And yet, how many of you are having joy? I don't mean the writing of the papers, because what did Ben Jonson say about writing?
It's work.
It's work. You have to strike the double anvil. It's not enough to strike it once. In other words, first drafts, no. Okay? You got to strike it twice. But what else? You're having to go out and read criticism. How many of you are just enjoying that beyond all measure? Like you've never experienced such joy than reading some deconstructionist critic of Beowulf or something. Yeah, I don't see many happy faces before me right now. Why not? Shouldn't reading a critic be something that adds to the joy of the reading of the text? I mean, what is the purpose of criticism?
But there's no joy most of the time in what you're reading. There's nothing there to feel joyous about it.
You mean in the
And the criticism.
okay? Why though? That's my point.
Because it's
Takes
vague.
effort.
It's
Takes effort.
vague.
It's vague.
It's pretentious.
It's pretentious. Okay. What should be the purpose of criticism? Take a course in 18th century, and hopefully, I can't bet this, hopefully you'll read some Samuel Johnson. And hopefully you'll read some of what Samuel Johnson says about literary criticism. Because Samuel Johnson says the purpose of a literary critic, or the purpose of criticism, is to, and I can never get my phone to do this, I was going to have the flashlight pull up, is to shine a light on a text. Why? Is this not enough light? Well, what's the shine light mean? To illuminate. Well, what's really being illuminating? By the critic. Us. We're the ones being illuminated by the critic doing what? Hopefully. Opening up the text. What does that mean, opening up? Peeling back the layers. It's why I spend, God knows, way too long on Beowulf. Why? Because most of you have probably had some introduction to Beowulf in high school. And one of the reasons I spend so much time on it is because I'm trying to undo what was done in high school. Because usually what was done in high school is horrible. Okay? So what do? I peel back the layers. That's why I look at individual meanings of words. You have to peel back the layers. Why? To see, one, what the words meant then, when the poem was composed. You have to do the same thing with 19th century poets. You cannot read John Keats or Wordsworth or Coleridge or Shelley or 20th century poets, Auden, etc., or Dickinson, and read them solely from a 21st century mindset. Why? Because the meanings of words have changed in 50 years, 100 years, 500 years, 1,000 years. You have to understand first and foremost what the words meant at the time when they were written. To understand what the poem meant when it was written. Does that mean that's the only meaning? No. Because then you need to say, okay, so that's what it meant then. But what does it mean now? Because the poem isn't what? It's not dead. It is alive now. How? So long as men have eyes to see, Shakespeare writes in those sonnets, this gives life to thee. As long as we can still read and have a modicum of understanding, that poem will bring back that golden-haired youth for us today. Okay? So the reason I have you read this criticism is hopefully to get a multiplicity of perspectives. You don't want to just read one critic. The one critic will give you one idea. Unless the critic is one of these people who assumes critical perspectives like a piece of clothing and writes something from a feminist perspective, writes something from a psychoanalytical perspective, or writes something from a Marxist perspective. There are people who do that. I don't know why. I don't know why. The way I approach every work of literature is pretty much from one perspective, mine. What do I attempt to do, though? I attempt to remove these. These are my biases. I attempt to. Can I perfectly? Nope. Why not? Because I can't see without them. I can't see without them. What are my biases? Yeah, I'm white, I'm male, I'm older, I'm upper middle class, though I wasn't born that way. I've got a PhD, which means I've got the piled higher deeper, and I've been doing it a long time, okay? But it also means I'm American, I'm Christian. All of those are biases, okay? I try to remove them, but I can't remove them entirely. But I also allow those biases to work at times. Why? John Donne. John Donne cannot be read and properly understood, I would argue, from the perspective of an atheist. Because he's a Christian. Especially his later poetry, which is written entirely with Christian these things. Okay? Does it mean an atheist should not read John Donne? No, it doesn't mean that at all. It means, yeah, an atheist can learn a lot from John Donne. But an atheist is not going to have what? I'm going to use a wild, extreme cartoon example. Is not going to have the secret handshake that allows that reader to see nuances in Donne's work. Similarly, I'd go even farther back. I'd say Beowulf. Unless someone is familiar with the ideology of the time, and that ideology isn't just, pagan Germanic, but the belief system of the early church, that is, has read at least some of the church fathers. That individual reading that is not going to have some of the same building blocks that the author of Beowulf probably had in that author's wellhouse. Because I think at least the author of Beowulf had read some of the church fathers, was familiar at least with some of them. Okay? So here's the good news for you. I'm lowering the number of critical sources you have to have from 7 to 5. It's not a lot, but it's 5, okay? Rather than 7. I'm not going to change the length of paper, because what is the length of paper? 8 to 10, yeah, we can keep that. So hopefully that will make it, if not a little bit easier, at least a little less odious. Where you've got to, wade your way through whatever. And you still have time. If you need advice, etc., you can email me. You can come to office hours, even over the weekend. If you have, something you're not sure about, send it my way. Okay. Took longer than I expected. Donne, the ecstasy, I think, is where we're picking up. Page 922. I did not bring a handout for the Holy Sonnets today. So, oh well. The ecstasy. Now, we've talked about an ecstasy before. Literally, what is an ecstasy? It's an out-of-body experience. It's where the soul leaves the body for whatever reason. Okay? Donne's speaker here has the soul leave the body. Why? So it can experience another soul. Where, pause, like a pillow on a bed. Notice, we start with an image. So now you have an image of a bed with a pillow. Where like a pillow on a bed, a pregnant bank swelled up. To rest the violet's reclining head, sat we two, one another's best. A pregnant bank. A bank by a stream looking swollen. Why? Because there's a clump of dirt. So the bank's kind of like this, and then there's a clump, and then there's a little violet right here that's leaning against it. Notice, sat we two, one another's best. We are like what? The pillow on the bed. One's the pillow, one's the bed. Possibly. We are like the violet leaning against the bank. Or we are the pillow. We are the violet. We are what? One another's best. It's not we are just the pillow. It's the image is, what's going to happen to the violet if the bank isn't here? Falls over. What happens to the pillow if it doesn't have something to lean on? It falls over. That's why we are one another's best. It's I fit you, you fit me. Okay? And best here, I think Donne is implying summum bonum. I am the highest good for you, and you are the highest good for me. Our hands were firmly cemented with a fast balm, which thence did spring. Well, what's the fast balm? What happens if you hold hands with somebody too long?
Their hands get sweaty.
Yeah, your hands get sweaty. That's the balm. Okay? Our eye beams twisted. Remember we've talked about the medieval Renaissance idea of our eyes shoot out beams of light. And so why are their eye beams twisted?
Because they're looking at each other.
They're looking at each other. They're not looking, oh, look at the beautiful view out over the river and the meadow. Their eye beams are twisted. Think, double helix like, though they didn't have the idea of the double helix. And did thread our eyes upon one double string. So what are their eye beams doing?
Their eyes are connected.
This is eye sex. That's what it is. This is thus, so far, their sole way of connecting. How do we know? So to engraft our hands, as yet was all our means to make us one. This is the only way they've made themselves one. And pictures in our eyes to get was all our propagation. That's how it rhymes. Okay? How have they begotten others? By his reflection in her eye and her reflection in his eye. That's it. As twixt two armies, fate suspends uncertain victory. Well, why bring in martial imagery? Why bring in armies? Because what does two armies imply?
A struggle.
Struggle, work, one's got to win, one must be defeated. But fate does what? suspends, who's going to win? Our souls, which to advance their state were gone out. Well, that's the purpose of armies, to advance their state. Why does shield Sheving deprive his neighbors of their meat benches? To expand his kingdom. So the soul goes out of the body to do what? Expand the body's kingdom. To win over others, so to speak. Our souls, which to advance their state were gone out, hung twixt her and me. This is the ecstasy. The bodies are lying there, hands clasped, staring at each other, and the souls are hovering above the bodies. Doing what? And whilst our souls negotiate there, we like sepulchral, I hate that word, sepulchral statues lay. It's like their bodies are dead. Why? Because their souls are up here doing what? What's the word he uses? Negotiating. Like ambassadors. What are they negotiating? Unconditional surrender? I'm not saying that is what they're negotiating, but they are negotiating. All day the same our postures were, and we said nothing all the day. It's enough for him and for her to do what? Just look in each other's eyes. If any, so by love refined, that he soul's language understood, and by good love were grown all mind, within convenient distance stood, he, though he knew not which soul spake, because both men both spake the same, might thence a new concoction take, and part far purer than he came. Now let's go back. If any, so we start off with the speaker saying, she and I are here holding hands, looking at each other. Our souls have left our bodies. Why? Because they're working the prenup, so to speak. And if somebody of a certain disposition comes by within hearing distance, well, what's the certain disposition? So by love refined. How do you get refined by love? Well, first of all, what is refined?
Make something pure.
Purified. So purified by love, This is not purified water because this came out of my tap. It's Rutherford County water. It's definitely not pure. Okay? Purified. So what do you do when you purify something? Clean it. You remove all impurity, all foulness, all rottenness. So if it's gold, you've removed every other trace of any other metal in it. Out. Okay? So this is being refined how? By love. Love is a refining fire. Okay? We're told repeatedly throughout the scripture, for example, God is love. John says that in his first epistle, shortest definition of God in the Bible. And yet what else? That love is what? It's purification. It's refining. It's one of the reasons the Catholics come up with the doctrine of purgatory. Okay? So, if this person's so refined by love that he what? Soul's language. Love, the speaker is saying, is what? The language of the soul. So if you're refined by love, so that your love is pure, you can then hear what? You can hear soul speech. So if you can hear soul speech, this person came in, that his soul's language understood, and by good love were grown all mind, all intellect, what would he hear? He, though he knew not which soul spake, because both meant both spake the same. Both meant, both spake the same. Take the second part first. What does that mean, they both spake the same? I love you. I love you. I love you more. I love you more. I love you this much. I love you this much. I love you this much. I love you. Whatever one says, the other says exactly the same. That's easy, right? It's the intent behind the words. Both meant the same. He might thence a new concoction take. Your gloss tells you, be even further refined. Yeah, that's one meaning of concoction. What's another meaning of concoction? What do you do when you concoct something? You make something new. He might leave what? Something different than what he was when he came. And yet, what he was when he came was so refined by love that he understood soul's language and had grown all mind, the speaker is saying he would grow even more mind. He would be even purer when he left. In part far purer than he came. Okay? That's the concoction. He comes, grown all mind. Here's this conversation. That conversation and what he learns from it gets added to him and he leaves different. Go back to our previous conversation. That's kind of like what happens to you every time you read a book. How? You're not the same person after you read a book, hopefully, I'll qualify that, as you are before you read the book. Because what has just happened? Before you read, for those of you, how many of you have read the Harry Potter novels? Show of it. Okay, most of you. Before you read the Harry Potter novels, you never had any idea of Harry Potter in you. Now you can't help but have that. So does that mean you're different merely because you have an 11 to 17-year-old boy running rampant within your psyche? Well, maybe a little bit. But you also have some of those things that occurred to Harry in those novels also running rampant in you. It doesn't mean you read Harry Potter or Beowulf, let's say, to figure out how 15-year-old boys are supposed to interact with 15-year-old girls, aka Cho. It's not what it's about. Okay? In other words, you don't read that book to learn how to be a better person. You read that book, why? For entertainment. That's where you start. And if it works, if the book works, you get hooked. How many of you have started a book and it just doesn't do anything? The first book of the Game of Thrones. I got it. Brand new, first edition, first printing. It's Book of the Month Club or something. Started it, put it down. Started it, put it. I started that sucker like 5 times. I think I got maybe 150 pages. And I finally said, forget it. Just didn't do anything for me. Most fantasy literature doesn't. Why? Because I've been brainwashed by the masters. Tolkien, Lewis, MacDonald, etc. Rowling to some extent. Okay? But I've got all of those authors in me. I've got, Beowulf in me. I've got Donne in me. Okay? C.S. Lewis, in his little book, An Experiment of Criticism, discusses this. He talks about the difference between a good reader and a bad reader. A bad reader reads for information. What does this tell me about the world? A good reader reads to be transformed. That's it. Reads to let whatever is being written do what? Work on you like a waterfall. Just let it flow over you. And what gets in, gets in. Maybe you go back and reread. How many of you have read a book? I'll use a wild example. 30 times. Anybody? I bet you will by the time you're 56. How many of you have read a book 5 times? Yeah, that's what I thought. Why? You've already read it. You know what it says.
You find something new every time you read it.
You find something new, or something new finds you. What are you doing? You're peeling back the layers of meaning. Are all those layers of meaning what the author intended? No! Author probably didn't have a clue. Okay? What's there? Why? Because the author isn't in control of his or her subconscious. And his or her subconscious is sitting there scribbling away while they are. So, you part far purer than you came. Unless it's, I don't know, penthouse novels or something like that. In which case, you get down in the mire. This ecstasy, what's the ecstasy? The two souls hanging over the bodies talking. Doth unperplex, we said, and tell us what we love. This ecstasy. So this is what the hearer, the eavesdropper, is listening to. This is what both souls are saying. This is what both souls are speaking. Okay? This ecstasy doth unperplex and tells us what we love. Unperplex. Why? Because, go ahead. Go ahead.
Just like, I think it means like it kind of makes things clearer.
Definitely.
Like it makes our priorities.
What is one of the hardest questions to answer? Why do you love me? Guys, I'll just say this to you right now. There is no right answer. So just don't say, oh, it's because you're mine. What? I'm fat? I'm not beautiful enough for you? You don't like me? Okay? Being facetious, obviously. But it's the kiss of death to say, it's because of your body, it's because of your smile, it's because of your brains, it's because of... Talk about objectifying, right? Okay, in the body, the speakers say, we are what? Perplexed. Why? Because we can't help but see, and see partially at least what? Sex. So take the souls out of the body, there's no physicality, and we are unperplexed. Why? Because now we see it was not sex. I don't love you because of sex. We saw not what did move. Just love this part of time. We see when. What's the tense of see? Now. We saw not. Before. Before when? When we were in our bodies. What did move? What do you mean, what did move? Think of the Ptolemaic system. Earth at the center, the spheres. What do the spheres do? They move and they affect bodies on Earth. Coming into his sphere, let's say, coming into contact with her sphere, when the souls are in the bodies, you get the bumping of the spheres. And the implication is his sphere coming near hers, all bodies in the universe, astral, heavenly bodies, so to speak, have what force? Gravity. What does gravity do? It attracts. That's because of gravity. That is gravity pulling this down. If the Earth gets too close to the moon, what happens? Or if the moon were to be hit by a massive comet and get knocked closer to the Earth, what would eventually happen? It would spiral in and in and in and in and wham! Okay? That's the what did move. We see now that we saw not before what did move us. Because what did they think moved us? Man, she's hot. The body. Sex. We thought that's what moved us. But as several souls contain mixture of things, they know not what. As several, that means as all souls contain mixture of things. What kinds of things? The elements, the humors, love, hate, anger, varieties of passions, etc. They know not what? Love these mixed souls. Love. Now standing out here takes this soul that is mixed up of all of these elements and takes this soul mixed up of all of these elements, and what does it do? It mixes them both up together. And what happens? It makes both one, each this and that. It takes the two, and from the two, his, hers, previous poem, to one neutral thing fit. And the two shall become one. Usually that's understood. What? It's talking about the body. In one way at least. He's saying, what happens here? Well, this soul has an absence, and this soul has an absence. And cue the Jerry Maguire scene. Jerry Maguire shows back up, Tom Cruise, Renee Zellweger, and what does she say? You, anybody familiar with the film? You, okay, and after that, you complete me. It's it. You complete me. In other words, there's something missing in me that you fill. And there's something missing in me that you fill. Now I'm whole. A single violet transplant. There we go, back to the opening lines. The strength, the color, and the size, all which before was poor and scant, redoubles still and multiplies. And violets do. They're like daylilies. You can have one daylily, break it up, divide it, plant part of it, and you'll then have two daylilies. Take those two, divide them again, you can get four. You can get more than that. Right? When love with one another so interinanimates two souls, so when love comes down and fills these two souls, how? It's not merely love coming from above and going bzz, bzz. It's love taking this one and enter between, inside, animates, gives life to. Hers gives life to him, his gives life to hers. When love with one another so animates two souls, that abler soul, which thence doth flow, defects of loneliness controls. Well, how can you ever be lonely? Again, if you have this kind of love. We're back at valediction forbidding morning, right? I mean, it's exactly what the speaker says. Our two loves are like gold to an airy thinness beat, or like the stiff twin legs of a compass. I've got to go far away, and what are you going to do? You're going to hearken after me. And it's almost like he's saying, and you're Elastigirl, and you're just going to keep hearkening after me no matter where I go. And you will draw me back. We then, who are this new soul, remember, both spake, both meant the same. The speaker is hearing. She's saying this, he's saying this. We then, who are this new soul, know of what we are composed and made, for the atomies of which we grow are souls, whom no change can invade. What's he mean by change? Souls are, in the Christian tradition, immortal. They cannot be killed. But oh, alas. So if it ended just right there, that would be, oh man, a heady platonic love poem. It's not your body. It's you. It's your mind. It's your soul I'm madly in love with. And your soul fills mine. And it'll keep me happy now till the day I die. Oh, but alas, so long, so far, our bodies, why do we forbear? Both say this. Most people want to go, yeah, typical man, uses all this beautiful language and says, okay, so let's, go back to our bodies and go back to bed. No, they both say this. Why? They're ours, though they're not we. We are the intelligences, they the sphere. What's the body without a soul?
Dead.
Dead. A carcass. What's a soul without a body? A ghost. They're meant to be together. Okay? Notice, they're ours, but they're not we. You are not your body. You are the animating spirit inside the body. The body is what makes your animating spirit known to other animating spirits. We owe them thanks. Why? Because they thus did us to us at first convey. Makes a lot of sense. How do you first know someone? Before this monstrosity. Because now people have 5 bazillion friends on Facebook who they've never what? Met. How can you be a friend with someone you've never... It blows my mind. I still don't understand. That's why I've got like 30 friends, because they're people I know. I've met, I've touched, I've held, kind of a thing. And yet I've got quote-unquote friends who have 1,000 friends who, live in Singapore and various parts of Africa, and they've never been outside the state of Tennessee. So how do you really know this, friend? He says, we owe our bodies thanks. Why? Because that's how we get to know each other. We're not Spock, mind meld. But even there, what do you got to do? The body's got to touch. Okay? They yielded their forces. Well, what are the forces, the powers of the body? Sensory perceptions. That's it. Strength is nothing more than touch. Okay? They yielded their forces to us, nor are dross, but alloy. Your gloss, alloy. Does that really help?
No.
So what is an alloy?
It's like a metal.
What kind?
Combination. So.
It's a combination. It's where you take at least 2 metals and meld them, blend them together. So a titanium alloy is usually titanium and steel. Why? It makes it stronger than just titanium or just steel. Okay? Or titanium and aluminum is extremely strong, but unlike titanium and steel, it's also very light. So bicycles get made, racing bicycles get made of it. Okay? So he says our bodies are alloy to us. So if they're alloy, then they're what? They're needed. They're necessary. This is Donne the poet telling us he's not a Gnostic. Okay? Gnostic religions, pre-Christianity and after Christianity, you had Gnostic Christians, etc., were people who believed all material stuff is bad. Not just, not good. Bad, evil, rotten, foul, and we must be purged of it. We will only be pure when our bodies are gone. Okay? And there's a great scene from one of the Star Wars films where you see this. It's the second one. Empire Strikes Back. Luke goes off to be trained by Yoda. And he's having a real hard time, lifting the spaceship and R2-D2 and stuff. And he gives up at one point. And Yoda says, we are not this crude material stuff. We are celestial beings, yes. And what does he do? Luke's like, yeah, it's a bunch of hokey. And little pint-sized midget Yoda, and he lifts up the spaceship and R2-D2 and all the supplies. And he goes, I don't believe it. Well, yes, that is your problem. He doesn't believe. Okay? Yoda is saying there, get rid of this stuff, and you'll be even more. And what do we see? Yoda dies. And what happens? He becomes one of the Trinity. We have Yoda. Who else? Obi-Wan.
And then Anakin.
And then Anakin. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. I mean, it's all right there. Okay?
Is Yoda the Holy Spirit?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. It's the Buddhist version. Okay, we'll just put it that way. So, he says you got to have this part. Why? Why is the Gnostic thing not good? Again, Donne's Christian upbringing, teaching, belief goes all the way back to the book of Genesis. What does God do? He makes, first day, he makes physical stuff. It is good. That's it. This is inherently good. My priest would hate me for saying this. This is inherently good. I know, even though it's made of petrochemicals and plastic and will last forever. It's good. Why? It has existence. It has the very fact that it exists means it is good. So everything that exists is good on one level. Doesn't mean that things can't make themselves bad. Okay? So, he goes on. On man, heaven's influence works not so, but that it first imprints the air. What? Mary has an angel appear to her. Her cousin Elizabeth had an angel appear to her first. Actually, the angel appeared to her husband first. Said, your wife is going to have a child. He's like, get out of here, buddy. We're way too old for that to happen. We tried, believe me. Okay, you're not going to speak until the kid's born, first of all, because you doubted me, and I'm an angel of God. But this is what's going to happen. And well, how does the angel appear? Is it just a disembodied voice? Zachariah. No, he's right there in front of him. Does he have wings that he's flapping, feathers and everything? John Travolta in the whatever that stupid movie was? No, he just appears and he's like, you're an angel. Very good. Angel appears to Mary. Joseph has a vision in a dream. Gabriel doesn't come right up, but Mary just kind of goes, okay, I'm cool with that. It first imprints the air. It takes what? What does it mean by imprint? How do you imprint air? Did I just put a fist print in air?
No.
No, but angels do. So soul into the soul may flow, though it to body first repair. Souls, like angels imprinting air, can do what? Flow into another, but they have to first go from souls back down into the bodies. How do they imprint souls? Through propagation, having children.
Starting route to 1602 Barclay Drive.
Usually it's mine that does that. So, as our blood labors to beget spirits, this is, a Renaissance notion that our blood creates the humors of the body, as like souls as it can, because such fingers need to knit, and here it is, that subtle knot that makes us man. What's the subtle knot?
The connection between the body and spirit.
The tying together of body and soul. So must pure lovers' souls descend. Notice, descend. It isn't going down. To what? To affections and to faculties, which sense may reach and apprehend. Hearing a voice, seeing a body, okay, tasting a lover, etc. So must pure lovers which since may reach and apprehend, else a great prince in prison lies. What's the great prince? Nope. The soul. If the soul doesn't descend into the body and what? Communicate with other souls, it lies in prison. The speaker is saying, what is the purpose of human existence? To interact. We're not meant to live in isolation. Does it mean we always have to be interacting with somebody else? No, it doesn't. Because if you're an introvert and antisocial person, more or less like I am, you just want to go away, leave me alone. You know? But it means we have to interact. Why? Because otherwise our soul is bound. To our bodies turn we then. Keep in mind, both spake, both meant the same. To our bodies turn we then. Why? That so weak men on love revealed may look. Weak men. People who don't have the kind of love we have. So that they can do what? Look at us and see revealed love. This is like super spiritual love. By revealed, he's saying, otherwise this love is what? It's hidden. Okay? It's opaque. It's occult, if you want, in that sense. So, weak men can look on it and become then what? Strengthened. Why in the relic? Why does the poet say, so that people can thus invoke us as a pattern for their love, so they can follow our example. Love's mysteries in souls do grow, but yet the body is his book. Mysteries. Mysteries literally are what? Things that cannot be resolved. But you can read a book. So, when love descends to the bodies, what can other people do? They can read. Have you ever seen two people that you are sure they are so madly, wildly in love that it'll last? Or it has lasted? Have you ever seen people, known people in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, who seem to be, by watching them, more, quote unquote, in love after 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years than they were when they got married? My mom died a couple years ago. She and my dad have been married almost 62 years. And that's the hard thing he's having now, you know. Waking up and it's different. Life's different. Okay? That's what the speaker's getting at there. And if some lover, that eavesdropper, such as we, have heard this, you got to just love Donne's play on words. Dialogue of one. They're both speaking, both meant the same. It's not a monologue, because they're both talking at the same time. Let him still mark us. Mark but this flea. Let him take note of us. And what? He shall see small change when we're two bodies gone. So what kind of poem is this? Is this platonic love poem? Or is this let's get down and dirty poem? It's the ideal of love. It's not platonic love. This is both intellectual, let me not to the marriage of true minds, okay, and erotic at the same time. What is Donne, the author, not Donne, the speaker, saying? They're the same thing. True erotic love is true, I keep pointing to the brain, soul love, true heart love.
Like the expression of
Yeah, yeah. If it's not played out, if it's not lived out, the speaker seems to be saying it's not real. Okay? Now, I won't do the rock. Okay, so the Holy Sonnets, like I said, I did not include them, and I usually don't do the Holy Sonnets, just because I usually forget to print out the sheet that I'm going to use. Donne wrote 19 Holy Sonnets. He seems to initially have written 12. We don't know exactly when. Might have written them as early as 1600. They might date from, most people date them 1608 to 1610. Okay? But he seems to have written 12, and then later on he writes 4 more, and he takes 4 of these original 12 out, and he substitutes these 4 in. So it's kind of like he has this idea of, I want a series of 12. He writes 12, he writes 4 more, he takes 4 of these out, he puts these 4 in. Okay? Well, that's only 16. He then writes 3 more, probably, at least 2 of them, are definitely after the death of his wife. All right? And we have, in the manuscripts of all of Donne's Holy Sonnets, we've got a bunch of collection of 12, these 12. We have another collection of, let me put it this way. We have one set of these original 12. We have another set of these 12 with the 4 taken out and the 4 new ones added in, so there's still 12. We have another set of manuscripts that have 16. Okay? And some of the 16 are these 12 plus just these 4 added on. Some of the 16 are these 12 with these 4 that have been removed added on. Okay? And then we have one that has all 19. Whatever the 16 are, plus the last 3. The interesting thing is, this one manuscript, let's see, pause. This one manuscript is written by one of Donne's very, very, very close friends, a guy named Roland Woodward. And it has poems for which it is the only copy of them, including, for example, these 3 written after the death of his wife. Okay? So this manuscript can be placed close to Donne. It actually even has a poem to R.W., to Roland Woodward, by Donne in it. So Woodward's copying on along, and he throws in this poem by Donne. Actually, take that back. No, it's got a poem to Donne from Woodward in it. Okay. So, this last one with the 19 poems, you got to look at that and say, okay, that's fairly authoritative because, this thing was probably based upon a manuscript Donne had, but we're not exactly sure. So, in the Donne Variorum, we printed 3 different sequences. Okay? The one that we thought Donne really originally intended of 12, and then we also include the 19. And it's largely because that's what I do in my dissertation. So, notice from Holy Sonnets, 1, 2. And then 5, 2. Well, what does that mean? Numbered as Sonnet 1 in some modern editions, numbered as Sonnet 2, or those added in 1635. The ones added in 1635 are these additional 4 get added on. Okay, so notice both of these begin, I'm kind of a small world. Begins with this microcosm idea. And we're not going to do all of these, but we're going to do a couple of them at least. As due my many titles, I resign myself to thee, O God. First I was made by thee and for thee, and when I was decayed, thy blood bought that, the which before was thine. You don't get a long pause until then. Okay? as due by many titles. A couple of manuscripts there read tithes. Well, what is a tithe? A tithe is 10% that you're supposed to give to the church. As due by many tithes, I do what? I resign means give myself back. By thee, O God. Why? Because first I was made by thee, and first I was made for you. And when I was decayed after the fall, thy blood bought that, Christ's crucifixion and everything, the which before was thine. I am thy son, made with thyself to shine, thy servant whose pains thou hast still repaid, how? Christ, etc. Thy sheep, thine image, until I betrayed myself, a temple of thy spirit divine. That is, till I betrayed myself. Well, why? Because the myself here is connected to, I'm supposed to be like you. And I betrayed you, therefore your Holy Spirit left me. Why doth the devil then usurp on me? Some of the manuscripts read, why doth the devil thus usurp in me? Okay? What is it that the devil usurps? Why doth he steal? Nay, ravish. What's thy right? Donne likes the verb ravish. Because what does it mean to ravish something?
It kind of has a rapey kind of.
Yeah, its modern term is rape. Why does the devil ravish, rape what is yours? Well, what's God's? The soul. Except thou rise, and for thine own work fight, oh, I shall soon despair. In other words, get up, God. Get up. Fight for me. If you don't, I will despair. When I do see that thou lovest mankind well, yet wilt not choose me. You love mankind well. Christ in one of his parables says, many are called, but few are chosen. Choose me, choose me. That thou lovest mankind well, yet wilt not choose me. And Satan hates me, and yet he is loath to lose me. He hates me, but he's willing to do everything for me. Notice what the speaker is saying. God, get up off your ass and fight for me. Why? Because the speaker is wrestling with, I think, Calvinistic ideas. Well, what are those Calvinistic ideas? You remember we had up here TULIP. Total depravity, unconditional election, limited atonement, irresistible grace, perseverance of the saints.
TULIP.
Choose unconditional election. Choose me, God. Elect me. Limited atonement. That's only for the elect. Okay? He's essentially saying, you have to do something or I will despair. I am a little world made cunningly of elements and an angelic sprite. Elements, physical stuff, and a spirit. But black sin hath betrayed to endless night my world's both parts, my physical body and my soul. And oh, both parts must die. Speaker sounds a little depressed, right? Having a hard time with life. You, which beyond that heaven which was most high, found new spheres, and of new lands can write. Pour new seas in mine eyes. Why? He's saying, fill my eyes with salt water so I can cry. He's begging for repentance. That so I might drown my world with my weeping earnestly, or wash it, if it must be drowned no more. Oh, it's almost like the speaker goes, oh, sorry, God's not going to drown the world again because of the little promise to Noah. Okay? But oh, it must be burnt. Book of Revelation, fire. It must be burnt. Alas, the fire of lust and envy have burnt it heretofore. Sexual passion, that's the lust. Envy, Why does that person have a better, easier life than I do? I wish they would fall. See, envy isn't merely wanting what somebody else has. It's wanting what they have and for them to suffer.
So what's the difference between envy and covetousness?
Covetousness is just wanting what they have.
Oh.
Like, I want Bill Gates' wealth. That's covetousness. Envy is, I want Bill Gates' wealth and I want him to die a pauper. A poor, low, rotten death, Or little Mark Zuckerberg, sitting there in his testimony before the Senate on his little booster seat and everything. I want, all that wealth, etc., and him to whatever. Sorry, I should take stabs at it. There's a great meme I saw on Facebook today. I just got to mention it. Somebody took an image of Zuckerberg sitting there in his Senate thing, and they put one of the Star Trek uniforms on from Star Trek The Next Generation. They didn't do anything to his face. And he looks exactly like Data, the android. I mean, I don't know that you could make him look paler. I mean, just saying there. But hair and everything's exactly the same. So, it must be burned unless the fire of lust and envy burnt it heretofore and made it fouler. Let their flames retire. So, let the flames of lust and envy retire, O God, but not all flames. And burn me, O Lord, with a fiery zeal. The zeal of thy house doth burn in me, the psalmist says, which Christ then uses when he overturns the money changers, or overchanges the money turners, whichever way, works both ways. Of thee and thy house, which doth in eating heal. What's thy house? Christ's body. He's talking about the Eucharist. Okay? Number 6. This is my play's last scene. Here, heaven's appoint my pilgrimage's last mile. Very Shakespearean. We get the ends of things. Play's last scene, pilgrimage's last mile, my race, last pace, that is last footstep, my span's last inch, my minute's last point, and gluttonous death will instantly unjoint my body and soul. Why is death described as gluttonous?
It wants everybody.
It'll eat anything. Okay? And it will do what? It will unjoint my body and soul, and I shall sleep a space. But my ever-waking part shall see that face whose fear already shakes my every joint. What is the ever-waking part? The soul. Notice what the speaker is saying. If I die, not if, we all die. When I die, I'll see that face. Well, there's kind of two camps in Christian tradition. When you die, you sleep. Your soul, quote unquote, rests. Old Testament, it goes to Sheol. It goes, use one of Christ's parables, the bosom of Abraham, possibly. Okay? But it's not awake and alert. It's like suspended animation. The other camp is, nope, you die, and you immediately go one of two places. The place you go is not at that point permanent, but it is going to be permanent later on. In other words, you don't go to hell and sit there and hope, maybe I'll get out. No, you go to hell, and then later on the final judgment comes, and he goes, you stay. You go to heaven, final judgment comes, you stay. Okay? What's that one based upon? What does Christ say to the good thief on the cross? Early church tradition says this guy's name is Dismas. So he's Saint Dismas.
Today you will be with me in paradise.
The one on the right-hand side. He says, remember me, O Lord, when thou comest into your kingdom. And he says, today you shall be with me in paradise. Not tomorrow, not in a bazillion years when you wake up from your suspended animation. Okay? So, then, as my soul to heaven her first seat, many manuscripts read state. State. The place of her first being. But some of them then change to seat. Why? Because state might imply the doctrine of the pre-existence of the soul. That the soul existed before sperm met egg. Okay? Which is a no-no in Christian tradition. So, Donne probably changes that. As my soul to heaven her first seat takes flight, earthborn body in the earth shall dwell, so fall my sins, soul rises up, sins fall down, that all may have their right. Why? Because sins belong in the earth, soul belongs with the heavens. To wear their bread. Well, the soul was created in heaven, sin was created on earth, and would press me to hell. The sins, if they had their choice, would press him through earth to hell. Impute me righteous. Well, who else was imputed righteous? Abraham was. That's why he was called the friend of God. Impute me righteous, thus purged of evil. Because what does impute really mean? Even though I'm not. Pretend I'm righteous. Supposing like a married man, etc. Why? For thus I leave the world, the flesh, and devil. I can't leave unless you impute me righteous. Unless you say, okay, let's skip a few. Go to, I think we have time to do these. Number 9 we'll do, and at least 14. Number 10. Now this one has some really interesting punctuation. It doesn't really have any verbal, what are called verbal variants, word changes. It's like Donne wrote this one and all the copyists got it just right. Same with Batter My Heart. But the punctuation is really interesting. Death be not proud, comma, little pause. Though some have called thee mighty and dreadful, for thou art not so. One manuscript, if I remember right, reads, death be not proud, period. In other words, get off your hobby horse. Though some have called thee mighty and dreadful, thou art not so. For those whom thou thinkst thou dost overthrow, die not, poor death, nor yet canst thou kill me. What does he mean? How can death not kill you?
Because the soul is eternal.
Okay, the soul is eternal. From rest and sleep, which but thy pictures be. Rest and sleep are traditional images of death. Okay, I can get that. Much pleasure, right? We like sleep. We like rest. We get pleasure from those, if we're fortunate enough to get them. So if we get much pleasure from rest and sleep, and they are but images of death, then how much more pleasure will we get from death itself, is his idea. Then from thee much more must flow. And soonest our best men with thee do go, rest of their bones and soul's delivery from virtuous men. Okay, that poem. Thou, who's the thou? Death. Thou art slave. Talk about a challenge. Who do you really not want to piss off in life? You don't want to piss off death, because he'll come, the Grim Reaper, a little more quickly. Thou art slave to fate, chance, kings. Kings can kill, right? Desperate men, people who are hungry, people who are poor, etc. And dust with poison, war, and sickness dwell. Really? Those are your best friends? Poison, war, plague, and poppy or charms can make us sleep as well. Yeah, he does mean what you think he means by poppy, okay? As well as by charms. Drugs can make us sleep as well and better than thy stroke. Why? Because you can have a horrible, rotten death. Painful, agonizing. Sir Philip Sidney took 3 weeks to die from a gunshot wound. Horrible, slow, agonizing. But with poppy or charms, soma, essentially, you just drift off with a smile on your face. Just, increase that morphine drip and la la la. Why swell'st thou then? One short sleep past, we wake eternally. Some of the manuscripts read, we live eternally. What's the difference between waking and sleeping? Waking and living. Waking is coming up into life again from sleep. Living is you've already been awake. And death shall be no more. Death, thou shalt die. Some of the manuscripts read, and death shall be no more death. And the last thing that shall be destroyed is death. Death, thou shalt die. Okay? Number 14. One of the most famous. This is usually anthologized in, 100 of the greatest poems. Batter my heart, three-person God. For you as yet but knock, breathe, shine, and seek two men. Knock, breathe, shine. Those are all images used in the New Testament. Behold, I stand at the door. Knock, Christ says. Okay. What does he do to the apostles? Just before he ascends into heaven, he breathes on them and says, go, make disciples of all nations, cure people, blah, 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 and seek two men. So, the speaker is saying, hello, anybody there? Don't breathe, don't shine, don't speak, shine. May the Lord make his face to shine upon thee. Traditional Old Testament blessing. No, what do you have to do, God? Beat on me. On my heart. Beat it to a pulp. Why? That I may rise and stand, overthrow me, knock me down, and bend your force to do what? Break, blow, burn, and make me new. What are break, blow, and burn? Okay, harder, what else? They're images of reaping and threshing. Take that piece of wheat, break it, crack it open, get the seed out. And then what do you do with the husk? Blow and burn it. Take what is foul and rotten, get rid of it. And make me, the seed inside, new. I, like a usurped town, to another do. Labor to admit you, but oh, to no end. That is, I'm trying to open the door, but I can't. Why? I'm usurped. Reason, your viceroy in me. Reason, notice, should be standing up for God. Me should defend, but is captive and proves weak or untrue. Yet dearly I love you, and would be loved fain, that is in return, but am betrothed unto your enemy. Who's God's enemy? Satan. I'm engaged to Satan. Divorce me. That is, divorce me from Satan. Untie that subtle knot that makes us man, or break that knot again. If you can't untie it, whip out your sword of righteousness, slice it in two. Why? Take me to you. Imprison me. You make me your prisoner. For I accept you in thrall. What does it mean to be enthralled? To be made a slave of. To be taken over entirely. Literally, it means to have one's mind controlled. You see it a lot in medieval literature. Okay? If you become enthralled by somebody, you lose your ability to think correctly. Enthrall, I never shall be free, nor ever chaste. What? Except you ravish me. There's an article written in I think it was the 70s, called Donne's Divine Rapist. He's saying to God, rape me, or I will never be chaste. Metaphysical conceit, two dissimilar ideas. Well, how can you be raped and chaste at the same time? What does to be raped mean? It's not just physical. It's everything. Chaste is everything. Unless God, you take me entirely, I can never be entirely yours. That's what he means. Okay? So then 18 and 19 are essentially, to some extent, about his wife, or caused by the death of his wife. Number 18, more specifically, is about the church. And we didn't read it, but if you were to turn back to page 926, you have Satire 3, which is about 110 lines long. Satire 3 is about religion. It's about what is the true church. Okay? Sonnet 18 is essentially about also the exact same thing, but we're not doing it. We'll stop there today. When we come back, we're going to do Good Friday 16:13 and Meditation 17. Right? You don't get a lot of meditation. You get just a little. But believe me, I can easily spend 85 minutes just on that. Don't forget your papers. Not the name.